We stand on the brink of a technological revolution, one that promises to unlock the mysteries of the human mind. From brain-to-computer interfaces that allow us to control machines with a thought, to artificial intelligence that decodes our emotions in real time. But as these innovations race forward, a critical question emerges. Will we keep control of our own minds in an age where our neural data can be harvested, analysed, and even changed? At the same time, a shadowy new weapons category is emerging. Neuroweapons, capable of manipulating our minds and emotions. These covert technologies raise chilling questions about control, ethics, and the future of conflict. In this film, we'll take a look at these emerging trends, and I'll share my own experience with what I can only describe as a neuroweapon.
Meet your brain's new best friend, or so they say. Neurotechnology, once the stuff of sci-fi, is about to crash land in your living room. There are two main categories of neurotechnology. The first is non-invasive, wearable brain-to-computer interfaces and augmentation devices. The second is implants, which, as we will find out, can also include nanotechnology. However, for this second category, research has shown that society is more than a little apprehensive. A Pew Research study found that just 20% of people would consider having an implant. That's just fine for companies like Elon Musk's Neuralink. They're focused on solving the problems of the mind, giving sight to the blind and allowing the paralyzed to control computers with thought. But some pitch neurotechnology as the inevitable future of humanity, with suggestions that it could soon become seamlessly embedded into devices we already use, like headphones. There must be a significance to all of this. Some are predicting the neurotechnology market will become a $32 billion industry by 2030, and big tech's already salivating. Silicon Valley giants and dozens of startups you've not yet heard of are racing to slap electrodes either onto or into your head, promising to enable brain-to-computer telepathy, decode your thought processes, and even replay your dreams. But before you buy that focus-assisting headband, let's take a hard look at what's at stake. Firstly, it's important to be clear about the potential benefits to society. Clinical trials of Neuralink have already given their first subjects a new lease of life. Now imagine the potential benefits for mental health, Alzheimer's, epilepsy, even depression.
Introducing electrical current into the brain or certain magnetic pulses is being shown to very robustly treat conditions like depression, certain sleep disorders. The devices that we're talking about now are more data collection, and then you have sort of the opposite side of that coin being neural stimulation and what we're calling mental augmentation. So things like magnetic stimulation to the brain, electrical stimulation to the brain, in certain cases, what we call neurofeedback, or influencing brain activity by the merits of certain parts of it being read in a certain way.
On the consumer side, the current range of devices are promising to improve your concentration and well-being. But these gadgets aren't just toys. They're bridges between your neurons and big tech's data centers. That's where it gets murky.
When we're talking about neurotech, it's important to remember what exactly it is that we are measuring, and that is our brain waves and our brain activity. And that can reveal things that are happening subconsciously, and it can also reveal higher level thought processes. It uses the raw data and applies algorithms to it in order to decode what's going on. And it can use that kind of information to determine incredibly sensitive information about us, like our political opinions, our sexual orientation, our implicit biases. And so when we're thinking about the rise of neurotech and the possibility for this kind of data to be mined for insights about ourselves, we need to be thinking about this as the final frontier of our privacy. It's an incredibly frightening thought.
The unique specificities and qualities of neural data mean that consumers are entering a landscape where they absolutely have a blindfold on. Even neural data from wearable consumer devices can be analyzed. Companies can access information about you, such as neurological disorders, mental health diagnoses, and increasingly elements of your thoughts.
Our thoughts, our mental activity, the way we think, what we think about, the way our brain works, that's what's being commodified.
Neurotech starts with the best intentions, but it quickly risks becoming a form of surveillance that we've never seen before.
I think this risk of misuse increases exponentially as soon as we move away from the domain of biomedical research and clinical intervention, and we start using these technologies in the consumer space. Our brains are the last refuge of privacy, and if we lose control over this, then we risk exposing the most intimate layers of our mental life to external scrutiny, manipulation, or even exploitation.
These devices are not marketed to treat medical conditions. They're marketed as wellness devices. And so the rules and regulations, in my understanding, apply differently. However, at the same time, they are collecting medical grade data. There are still gaps and things where patient and consumer data may be at risk of not being protected.
Will advertisers eventually start interpreting your brainwaves to sell you more junk? Will your boss slap you with a warning if you're not fully focused all day? Experts like Nita Farahani warn we're a hop away from what she calls brain transparency becoming the norm.
You glance at the program running in the background on your computer screen and notice a now familiar sight that appears whenever you're overloaded with pleasure. Your theta brainwave activity decreasing in the temporal regions of your brain. Your mind starts to wander to the new colleague on your team, whom you know you shouldn't be daydreaming about, given the policy against intra-office romance. But you can't help fantasizing just a little. But then you start to worry that your boss will notice your amorous feelings when she checks your brain activity and shift your attention back to the present.
What do you think? Is it a future you're ready for? You may be surprised to learn that it's a future that has already arrived. Everything in that video that you just saw is based on technology that is already here today. Artificial intelligence has enabled advances in decoding brain activity in ways that we never before thought possible. What we've seen consistently is companies from Amazon to Tesco to Walmart and others have introduced what is considered to be bossware or surveillance technology that employees really don't like it, even if it makes their lives better. Okay, well, if you don't like your job, just quit. But what if there's nowhere to go? What if everywhere has ubiquitous monitoring? So what do we do with this? What do we do with technology that enables us to monitor brainwave activity for attention? Do we embrace it? Do we resist it?
I wouldn't advocate for employers being able to track brain data. It would just be a wholesale intrusion into individuals' mental space. We don't know what the limits of that would be, and it's a coercive relationship.
Around the world, there are employers that have been experimenting with these brain monitoring technologies. But the question is, what happens when this technology moves into an office or a low-risk job? And a lot of the consumer devices that are on the market today are pitched as productivity tools. If your job or your promotion depends on you saying yes to your employer, can you really say no to that?
Allowing employers to track this data risks creating a surveillance culture where cognitive liberty, as we call it, the freedom of thought in the literal sense, is undermined. And it's not just a question of data protection. I think we should emphasize this. It's about protecting the very fabric of individual freedom and dignity.
Keeping up with the patent frenzy. Apple, Google, Meta, Snapchat, they're all in the game. Back in 2023, Apple filed a patent to fit their popular AirPods with hardware able to read the, quote, electrical activity of the brain of a user using an EEG device. Google futurist Ray Kurzweil predicts that by the 2030s and 2040s, nanobots the size of blood cells will swim through our bodies, linking our neocortex to the cloud.
These nanobots, these blood cell-sized devices, will be going in our bodies, keeping us healthy from inside. We'll have some go inside our brains through the capillaries, non-invasively, interacting with our biological neurons. They'll extend our memory, our decision-making faculties. They'll put our brains on the internet, and they'll also enable us to enter a virtual reality environment from within the nervous system. So if I want to go in a virtual reality environment, the nanobots will shut down the signals coming from my real eyes and my real skin and create the signals that would be appropriate for the virtual environment.
Tech's favorite doomsayer, Yuval Noah Harari, has a wild claim. We're not just humans anymore. We're hackable animals. In various interviews and presentations, he argues that science has already cracked us open. Algorithms, AI, and neurotech won't just predict our choices, they can rewrite them.
We'll soon have the power to re-engineer our bodies and brains, whether it is with genetic engineering or by directly connecting brains to computers. What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. To hack a human being is to get to know that person better than they know themselves. And based on that, to increasingly manipulate you.
Harari's point: with enough data, your clicks, your pulse, your neurons, AI will know you better than you know yourself. But before neurotech creeps from labs into your Amazon cart, it's worth asking, who will be holding the reins to your data? Companies in the brain augmentation space envision a future where we boost memory, learn instantly, and maybe merge our minds with artificial intelligence. A chip in your brain could make you an instant genius. The promise is breathtaking. A world where disabilities vanish, where education is a download, where creativity knows no bounds. At every leap forward casts a shadow. What happens when your thoughts aren't just yours? When corporations or governments can peek inside, or worse, tweak what's there? In the wrong hands, it's a tool for control. And if the brain can be upgraded, who decides what better means? In a 2018 Draper University presentation entitled Connecting Minds to the Internet, Founderspace CEO Steve Hoffman gave the world a preview of where the technology is headed.
What's coming next will literally blow your mind. There are new technologies, and a lot of them are being developed by startups and the military that are going to allow us to much more accurately measure and actually communicate with your brain. Scientists have also done several experiments on what they call dream reading. You can start to interpret somebody's dreams through the technology.
One man at the cutting edge of neuroweapons capabilities is Dr. James Giordano, who is the director of the Center for Disruptive Technologies and Future Warfare. Giordano has worked in partnership with the Pentagon's DARPA and NATO.
By accessing the brain, we're able to affect its functions. What neuroweapons are those tools, those techniques, those means, and those methods of affecting the peripheral and central nervous system in ways that modify the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions of others in those ways or in those dimensions that are intentional, so we can then utilize these weapons in ways that are what we call kinetic. In other words, we can actually use them in sort of a combative way, but we can also use them in ways that are far more non-kinetic, in a more influential, perhaps disruptive and or deterrent way. We can't simply usurp information from someone's brain from a distance yet. Are we close? Well, I think we're certainly in the waiting room. The current DARPA project, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency project, that is referred to as N-cubed. It involves the use of neuro-engineered sensors and transmitters that can be introduced to the brain space non-surgically, either via inhalation, injection, ingestion, absorption through a mucous membrane. migrated into the brain space utilizing some form of magnetic current due to the particular properties of these nano-engineered materials, and then utilizing this migrational pattern to form a relatively vast array of sensors and transmitters within the brain that allow real-time reading of information from the brain and writing of information to the brain remotely. I don't care how you twist this. This represents some iteration, some construal of, quote, mind reading and mind control. Can we infiltrate the brain space non-surgically, embed within the brain a vast array of nanomaterials that are capable of sensing and transmitting remotely in real time? And can you then be able to transmit information back into the brain in such a way that is going to be uptaken by the brain and then translated into some aspect of cognition, perhaps emotion, and perhaps also some execution of action and behavior? We're on that path. Could they be used by state agents and actors in ways that target specific individuals for clandestine engagement? Yes, absolutely. Could they, in fact, be inflicted upon an individual without this individual knowing? Well, yeah, actually they could. Some of these tools are also recognizing that the brain as an electromagnetic organ is therefore sensitive to a variety of energies that may be directable. And now we're talking about directed energy weapons and or directed energy devices that could be weaponized. And we're looking at a broad spectrum. For example, we're looking at directable and rangeable acoustics and sonics, ultrasound and infrasound, lasers, rapidly pulsed microwaves. And we recognize that each and all of those things speak to particular vulnerabilities in the way the human nervous system operates that can be affected by a variety of these tools that are increasing in their capability and sophistication that can affect individuals and groups of individuals in ways that they may not be aware at the time, to be able to induce effects that may be initially subtle, but are nonetheless profound in terms of altering their capabilities of thought, their clarity of thought, their ability to function, the types of thoughts they have, vigilance, capability of thought, clear-mindedness, and a host of physiological functions, their balance, their coordination, their ability to do a job, their health. I think we also do need to be concerned about the potential capability of state actors, particularly state actors that exist within authoritarian regimes, to make particular demands that these technologies be implemented for social control.
Not only can we put information in without blowing up your brain, we can put it in and then you can believe it so sincerely that the problem is you can testify to that effect. There's some really interesting research that we can plant false memories in the brain. And in a different context, one of the emerging areas that's really interesting in law neuroscience is pain detection. And once we understand the circuitries that cause pain, I guess the question is, could we then instill pain and use that in many coercive measures in the legal system as well?
It has many names. Havana syndrome, anomalous health incidents, electronic harassment. It's happening to military personnel, spies, and civilians. Yet on the civilian side, it's often overlooked or ridiculed. Somebody is using exotic weaponry against law-abiding citizens with cases reported around the world. I too am experiencing these attacks, which started after I retweeted a video of a whistleblower in Ukraine alleging he witnessed a crime committed by a member of the British royal family. It's like I'm being tasered every minute of the day. But these attacks somehow react to your thoughts with millisecond latency. And that's the elephant in the room. Targeted individuals are telling the truth. This is a weapon that seems to be able to capture your thoughts in real time and can inflict a variety of effects on the brain and body, including various types of pain and unintended movement of the limbs, as well as being able to send different types of data directly into the mind.